Anthology series like Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark were my first steps into the world of horror as a kid. Even today, the anthology format thrives in shows like Channel Zero and Black Mirror. But for me, anthologies with reoccurring characters always resonated with me more deeply. In manga form, one of the best examples of this is Ura Baito, or Shady Part Time Jobs, a horror anthology series created in 2020. The story follows two girls, Yumi and Nagomi, as they take on shady part-time jobs that pay suspiciously well, all to pursue their own goals. Each job is around 2 to 4 chapters long, introducing us to a new, disturbing entity that the duo must face. While each story stands on its own, it's the overarching lore surrounding the two main characters that keep us hooked. So today, we're diving into the first 3 volumes of Ura Baito, exploring the lore, world building, and the eerie universe of the shady part-time jobs.
But if you guys want to see more anime content like this one, then why not go down and hit that subscribe button.
But without further ado, let's get on with the video. The series kicks off with 3 crucial tips for surviving the shady part-time jobs. 1. Expect the unexpected. 2. Gather as much intel as possible. And 3. Find a helper if possible. We're introduced to our 2 main characters, Yumi and Nagomi, who arrive at their boss's house where they'll be staying while working at his diner. After a long day, they settle into their rooms, hinting at a past connection between them. Hama, as Nagomi is often called, mentions that the job pays an incredible $150 an hour, which surprises Yumi, considering it's just a waitressing gig. Later that night, Hama is out walking in the woods, reflecting on how Yumi is like a stubborn sister to her. Suddenly, she feels the eerie sensation of being watched, not just by one thing, but by many. She turns and sees a figure by a tree, which quickly disappears. Suddenly, a distorted face appears out of nowhere, and someone tells her to wake up. She snaps out of it only to find Yumi standing next to her bed, muttering the words, "Stinks." Yumi leaves the room, followed by what appears to be a child. As Hama rushes out, she sees their boss staring into a room. Just before passing out, she overhears him saying they're destined to return to the forest. The next day, the owner and Hama discuss the bizarre events of the previous night. He offers her the day off, but she declines, instead asking who he was talking to. He reveals that his sick wife lives with them upstairs, and they move to the forest in hopes that she'd recover. Now, he's essentially a prisoner to the forest. Hama tries to talk to Yumi about it, but she brushes her off. That night, the nightmares return, with the mysterious figure getting closer each time, only for someone to wake her up before anything happens. This disturbing cycle repeats every single night for a week straight. One day, Hama finds Yumi sitting alone in a room, muttering to herself while clutching a fire extinguisher. The owner watches them from the hallway. The next morning, as they eat breakfast, the owner casually asks what they were doing last night. Hama admits to having strange dreams that keep her awake, which causes Yumi to freak out, repeating the phrase, "It stinks." The owner gives a creepy smile, suggesting that they both get some proper sleep. That night, the dream changed. The figure doesn't approach Hama but just stands there, laughing. Yumi wakes her up again and urges her to come to the lounge. As Hama walks through the hallway, she notices the owner's room is wide open. Peeking inside, she finds his wife's corpse. Panicking, Hama asks Yumi if she knew about it. Yumi admits that she could smell something off, but she didn't know what it was. The owner suddenly appears, demanding that they open the door. Hama goes to do so, but Yumi stops her, insisting that it stinks. Suddenly, the door is smashed open with an axe. Hama tries to escape, but Yumi is paralyzed with fear. The owner reveals that the dreams were meant to devour Hama, but Yumi kept waking her up, saving her life. As the owner swings the axe at Yumi, Hama kicks her out of the way and taunts him, asking if this is how he killed his wife. Offended, the owner denies it, explaining that his wife was killed by her illness and that they moved to the forest to fulfill her dream. However, the forest took control, and he believed that by sacrificing somebody, he could revive his wife. The owner swings the axe again, but Yumi blocks it with the fire extinguisher, which explodes, giving the girls a chance to escape. As they run into the forest, Yumi warns Hama about something chasing them. The next morning, exhausted from their escape, they're approached by villagers who reveal that the owner has always lived here and that he was always single. despite what the girls were told. As they wrap up their jobs, Hama hands Yumi her first paycheck and asks about the smell. Yumi explains that it's a sign of trouble whenever she detects it. Hama then invites Yumi to join her in doing more shady part-time jobs, knowing that she could use the money. Yumi agrees, and they immediately start bickering like old friends. The chapter ends ominously, with voices echoing from the forest and the final page revealing the owner and other bodies fused with the trees. The first volume of Shady Part Time Jobs throws Yumi and Nagomi into a series of increasingly unsettling jobs, from working at night security guards in a haunted building to serving as test subjects for experimental medicine. But the standout story of the volume is about a particularly shady delivery gig. Deliver a briefcase to a specific location marked on the map for a hefty reward of $30,000 each. The catch? Under no circumstances are they allowed to look inside the briefcase. As they embark on this road trip, they find themselves passing near their hometown and decide to make a quick visit. Before that though, they make a stop at a small stop, where they notice everyone staring at them. While grabbing a bite to eat, someone accidentally knocks over the briefcase and hands it back to them. Later that night, something slides under the door. The same woman who had knocked over the briefcase steals it in the middle of the night. When the girls wake up, they find the briefcase outside their door, with a trail of blood leading to the woman's dead body in the hallway. Shaken but determined, they hit the road again and decide to visit their old middle school. They dig up a time capsule, only to be interrupted by a former math teacher who distracts them with nostalgic memories while secretly attempting to steal the briefcase. The moment she opens it, she goes mad, scraping her face across the scorching concrete as the briefcase inexplicably grows larger. The girls continue on their journey, sharing stories about their personal lives. They get sidetracked by a local festival and decide to join in on the fun, enjoying caramel apples and the lively atmosphere. But things take a dark turn when someone bumps into them and steals the briefcase. The thief, eager to show off his prize, decides to unveil what's inside from the top of a tower. Meanwhile, a couple finds Yumi and Hama tied to a tree and frees them. When they return to the festival, chaos has erupted. People are either crying, laughing uncontrollably, or setting everything on fire. The girls barely escape as a group of men charge at them. The next morning, they find themselves at a train station with some time to kill. But as they relax, they realize they have only an hour left to make the delivery. They quickly hail a taxi, only for the driver to try and steal the briefcase. After knocking him out, they finally reach the destination, drop off the briefcase, and receive their payment. Curious though, they ask their employers what's inside the briefcase, but the men have no idea. They're just middlemen in the operation. As the girls leave and grab a meal, talking about their middle school days in the time capsule, a breaking news report plays in the background. Countries from the Middle East to West Asia have been completely obliterated, and the only word survivors kept repeating is briefcase. The first volume is a good introduction to how the rest of the story is going to go. I believe that the series is a perfect mix of like Scooby-Doo and PTSD Radio. Every volume has 4 stories, each 2 to 4 chapters long. But like Scooby-Doo, the main characters find themselves entangled in villain of the week scenarios, but with the disturbing and surreal imagery that fans of PTSD Radio would appreciate. The only difference is that it's more character focused, dealing with the relationships between Yumi and Hama, but also how they are as individuals. It's the perfect duo of a shy and serious character with a bright and cheerful one, with also splashes of comedy. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that this is supposed to be a comedy? The character-driven narrative adds depth to the horror, making the stakes feel more personal and the moments of levity more impactful. The jobs are interesting in concept, however many of them just don't leave that much of a longing impression, especially since the series doesn't have any long-lasting consequences. These stories aren't filler, as it does have some important character moments, but it doesn't really make much sense in the long run. At the end of every story, they don't defeat the entity, but instead wrap up things before it gets too intense. It takes a realistic approach, which is great, but it doesn't explain how multiple countries can just be wiped out and it's never mentioned again. It's just like a really trippy and unpredictable experience from start to finish. Nothing to be taken super seriously, but hopefully the other volumes can just keep up the quality or maybe even increase it. But before we get to the next part, I just want to say that we now have a Discord server. So if you guys want to talk about your favorite series, get recommendations, and just connect with some like-minded fans of mine, then this is the server for you. We'll soon be hosting live community events like games, live reactions, and live readings only on the Discord server. So if you want to be involved in this, then why not scroll down and join our community? But back to the video. The second volume has Yumi and Hama continue taking shady part-time jobs, but will get partners assigned to them by the Shady Part Time Jobs company, a company that we'll talk about in later time. But we're gonna go over the most important story of the volume, the aquarium job. The girls land a gig giving behind-the-scenes tours at an aquarium, with the main attraction being a special creature that can only be seen in the aquarium's restricted area. However, their new partner, Dede, seems to not know what's going on. Flashbacks to a week earlier when Hama receives the job offer from the company, with 3 slots open. Her boss decided to bring Dede along, a girl that has some connection to Hama. As the groups begin to get to know each other, they notice something strange, a school of fish forming in the shape of a woman. Their boss gives them a tour of the aquarium backstage where they encounter a massive, ominous black tank. During a break, Yumi comments that the backstage stinks, while Dede just laughs it off saying that it's because of the fish. But in reality, it's hinting that it might be coming from the mysterious black tank. As they start to bicker, Dede interrupts, asking why they started taking on these shady part-time jobs. We then cut to their boss, who is standing naked in front of the black tank, which we soon discover that the darkness is just a giant, unsettling eyeball. Dede shares that she had a buddy ask her for a loan, and she said yes and he disappeared, and now she wants to pay off the debt to surprise him when he comes back, not knowing that she was actually tricked into taking his debt. Yumi reveals that her goal is to clear the debt her parents left when they disappeared, while also supporting her siblings' education and living expenses. Hama, on the other hand, dreams of traveling the world, but despite having enough money to do several times over, she wants to see everything that the world has to offer. As they head back to work, the eerie sounds coming from the black tank makes Yumi uneasy. That day, their boss mysteriously vanishes. A few days later, a woman visiting the aquarium sees another naked woman swimming in the tank. At first, she's shocked, but she soon feels an inexplicable pull as the woman is calling to her to come closer. Meanwhile, Dede gets lost near the massive tank. The same woman from before asks for a tour and casually just drops $30,000 to spend. Suddenly, Dede hears someone call her name. When she turns around, she's horrified to see their boss, naked, telling her that she wants you. As the woman on the tour senses the presence of the naked swimmer, she rushes towards her, while Yumi warns Hama that it stinks. We cut to Dede as the boss approaches her, rambling about a mother fish that isn't from this world. While Hama considers leaving everyone behind, Yumi insists that they need to save both Dede and the customer. Things take a terrifying turn when Dede is dragged into the tank by the boss, who head transforms into a fish. The woman from the tour, seemingly in a trance, begins to undress to join him. All 3 end up in the tank, but Hama manages to pull Dede out at the last moment. After this harrowing experience, the trio decides to quit the aquarium job. Hama, however, wants to keep working with Dede so she could spread her positivity to Yume. The chapter ends on a chilling note. Visitors at the aquarium spot a school of fish in the shape of a person, only to realize it's the actual corpses of the boss and the woman, both devoured by the fish, leaving only the remains. But we get an after-credit scene of Dede asking Hama if her father is doing well. Now, while the second volume isn't as good as the first, it still has some pretty creepy imagery and the job scenarios keep readers engaged. You can skip the other stories, but I don't recommend doing it. It's worth sticking with them for the character development alone. Character development is a strong point in this volume. We learn more about the motives and the backstories of the main characters. This character focus adds emotional weight to the story, making the terrifying moments even more impactful than they are. I didn't really like that they added pointless side characters. They're not very interesting or memorable, except for Dede, as she's the only one with connections to Hama and the shady part-time company. Dede adds another layer to the comedy of the series with her facial expressions and just her lost in thought attitude. But with the flashback and the after credit scene, we know that there's a lot more to both her and Hama. From what we know about the company, their purpose is to assign shady jobs to workers interested in doing shady work. We also know that there are multiple workers and that there's even a commission fee that they have to pay to the owner. But with the many mysteries and dark secrets ready to be uncovered in future volumes, I'm just really excited to see how Volume 3 expands on that lore. The structure of Volume 3 is a lot different from the other two. It starts off with another shady job as a janitor at a haunted school. But the next stories are continuations of the after credit scene that we see at the end of Volume 2. Hama meets up with her boss, Dede, and a new partner named Yuki, a shy and gloomy girl. Their latest assignment is a private investigation into the life of a celebrity named Shiro Azuma. The mission is simple: tail him and look for anything strange, while making sure not to get caught. Yume pairs up with Dede while Hama sticks with Yuki. But as they follow Azuma, unsettling events begin to unfold, like stray cats and even people dying around him. The next day they realize something bizarre. Throughout the entire time that they've been tailing him, none of them have actually seen his face. As the accidents and strange deaths continue, Yuki starts to unravel, questioning why Hama seems so calm in the face of such weirdness and death. Meanwhile, their boss vanishes without a trace. 3 days later, the group ramages through his desk and discovers a letter with a key. The letter says that if the boss goes missing, they should use the key to search Azuma's apartment for clues. When they finally break in, Yuki stumbles upon Azuma's dead body. But there's just one problem. Dede and Yumi can still see Azuma walking around the city. Desperate, Hama calls up their boss, who casually just tells them not to get involved because anyone who does is bound to die. As Yumi and Dede continue tailing it, Yumi starts to sense something strange, muttering, "It stinks," before bolting with Dede. The tension peaks when someone calls out his name, causing a crowd to gather around him. But suddenly, a plane crashes into the scene. Strangely, the plane was empty, but 61 people on the ground died that day. Their boss later reveals that he's actually a specialist in shady paranormal matters, just like whatever entity was impersonating Azuma. Afterwards, Yumi takes Dede home while Hama walks with Yuki. Yuki thanks Hama for being a friend and saying that she's glad to have gotten to meet everyone. But before they part ways, Yuki ominously warns Hama not to look behind her. Seconds later, Yuki is tragically struck by a car, leaving Hama traumatized and desperately trying to calm herself by thinking happy thoughts. Their next job takes them to a hot spring with a sinister secret. Despite the relaxing setting, their shady investigator boss is concerned, especially about Hama. The hot spring is rumored to house the Hot Spring of Dreams, a mysterious bath that has caused several cleaners to drown. The girls manage to clean it up and enjoy a month of relaxation at their job, until the investigator uncovers the truth. Instead of draining people's youth, the Hot Spring of Dreams replaces its victims with imposters, like the one that they encountered in their last job. Chaos erupts when a fire breaks out in the building. Hama is knocked unconsciously by an imposter but is found by Yumi. They reach the Hot Spring of Dreams only to find the owner drowned and their only exit blocked by debris. In a fit of frustration, Hama lashes out at Yumi, blaming her for everything. She claims things were simpler when she just didn't have to care about others. Yumi counters that Hama has always been like this but reassures her that she'll never leave her side. In a dark twist, the imposter escapes in a car with another person, revealing that they have enough water from the spring to sell. We then flash back to Hama's childhood, where she's been reading travel magazines before a knock at the door reveals her father, leading her to wake up from a nightmare, screaming for him. Hama finds herself in a hospital with Yume by her side. Their next job is at a radio station where they receive endless eerie calls from people who Yume mentions stinks. Dede questions Hama about her family. She says that she only has a father, and Dede's face suddenly distorts, accusing Hama of lying and asking why she won't admit the truth. Hama is then seen asking her father about her mother, but before anything can happen, she wakes up, startled, realizing that everything was just a reoccurring nightmare that she's been having since she started working. After a month of tension, they get fired from the radio gig for ruining the show. Yume and Hama finally have a heart-to-heart though. Hama confesses that when her father died, she lied to Dede, claiming that he was still alive because she didn't want to face being alone. Yuki's death brought up painful memories, and now she fears losing Yume too. But Yume promises that she'll always stay by her side. Hama then asks her to join her in her dream of traveling the world. Yume agrees. Once her debts are paid off, they'll explore the world together. I have a lot of mixed opinions about Volume 3. The first and second job are really good, but the rest are pretty boring to sit through. The jobs themselves are not the vocal points of the story, but instead is focused more on Hama's backstory and mental state. The only thing keeping the jobs interesting is that each chapter is a continuation of the next, which is the first time we see this series do. It's also the first time we see a reoccurring entity showing up and hinting at more appearances in the future. The world building is also expanding with not just the Shady Part Time Company, but also with the investigator now going to be a reoccurring character. But again, the real highlight is Hama's character, as we learn more about her father and her state of mind due to all of the shady jobs. Little details like Hama wanting to leave the situation without thinking of others play a huge part in her personality and struggles, and now that she has Yumi, being the total opposite, brings up her abandonment issues. This character development adds a bunch of emotional depth to the whole series, even if the jobs themselves aren't as interesting as the previous volumes. The Shady Part Time Jobs continue to deliver a unique blend of horror, dark humor, and character-driven storytelling. While the series itself doesn't really build the tension or have memorable job scenarios, the real focus is the relationship between Yume and Hama as both individuals and job partners. At the beginning of the series, they just seem to be like a villain of the week type story, but around the third volume, it starts broadening the series' lore and sets the stage for future arcs and developments. With the mysteries of the imposters and the Shady Part Time Company, it just builds a strong foundation for the story to build on if done right. This series is still ongoing. There's chapters coming out almost every month, so if you want me to talk about more volumes, all you gotta do is comment down below. But whether you're here for the creepy and disturbing imagery or just the evolving dynamic between the main characters, Shady Part Time Jobs remains a captivating anthology that leaves you eager for some more. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember to join the Discord server by clicking the link in the description. And if you like horror, anime, and manga videos like this one, then why not hit that subscribe button? But I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.